The World Cup is the most prestigious trophy in football, a prize nations pour millions into chasing, all for glory, pride, and a place in history. But not every match becomes a heroic chapter. Some turn into disasters. Matches so chaotic, controversial, or downright unbelievable that fans still talk about them decades later. And with the World Cup right around the corner, let's look back at 10 World Cup matches that went horribly wrong. It begins in 2022, a World Cup that promised spectacle and delivered fury. Argentina versus Netherlands was supposed to be a tactical chess match, a semi-final level clash, filled with skill and discipline. Instead, it became a battlefield. The intensity was visible from the first whistle, but by the end, it felt like a street fight more than a sport. 17 yellow cards, a World Cup record, players sprinting at each other after fouls, substitutes charging across the pitch, coaches screaming, referees overwhelmed. Even Messi, usually calm and composed, lost his cool, shouting at Dutch players and later firing shots in interviews. Every minute was a new explosion. Late tackles, confrontations, shoving, time wasting, taunting. When Wout Weghorst scored that last-second equalizer, emotions spilled over like fire. Even the penalty shootout was filled with drama. Players walking past each other with cold stares, gestures, insults. After the final whistle, both teams clashed again, surrounding referees, yelling, refusing to calm down. FIFA's disciplinary committee opened an immediate investigation. It wasn't just football, it was war disguised as a quarterfinal. And then, shockingly, just days earlier in the same tournament, another moment shook the world. Argentina versus Saudi Arabia. The match began normally, until Lucas Hernandez planted his foot wrong and collapsed. No contact, no foul, just a horrifying twist that tore his ACL. The sound, the reaction, the silence, it froze the stadium. From that point on, something changed. Argentina looked rattled, Saudi Arabia smelled vulnerability, and the match spiraled into reckless challenges and desperation. Every tackle felt like a gamble, every clearance rushed, every counterattack frantic. Saudi Arabia, playing with unbelievable self-belief, pushed Argentina into chaos. Defenders lunged wildly, midfielders mistimed tackles, and panic spread through the team. It wasn't just an upset, it was a collapse fueled by fear, confusion, and emotional shock. One injury changed everything. One moment shattered Argentina's rhythm. The match never recovered. It only descended further. But chaos isn't always triggered by fear. Sometimes, it's triggered by pure controversy. No moment proves that more than the infamous Uruguay vs. Ghana quarterfinal in 2010. Hand of God 2.0. The clock was dying. Ghana took a shot that was going straight in. Africa was seconds away from the continent's first ever World Cup semifinal. Then Luis Suarez, instead of defending, transformed into a goalkeeper and swatted the ball away with both hands. A deliberate handball, a red card, a penalty, an absolute global meltdown. Ghana's players were furious. The bench cleared. Fans across Africa screamed in disbelief. And then, heartbreak. Asamoah Gyan stepped up, took the penalty, and smashed it off the crossbar. In that moment, the world felt silent, then exploded in chaos again. Ghana lost in the shootout, Suarez celebrated controversially from the tunnel, and social media, still new at the time, erupted into rage. It wasn't just a football incident, it was a cultural earthquake. But the chaos that comes from controversy has existed long before social media. Flashback to the 2002 World Cup, Italy versus South Korea, the match many fans still call the robbery. Everything that could go wrong did. Perfectly valid goals were disallowed. Brutal fouls went unpunished. A questionable red card left Italy stunned. As the match dragged on, you could feel the anger boiling. Players lost trust in the officiating. Every whistle triggered a swarm of protests. Every tackle turned into a confrontation. When Italy scored a golden goal, only for it to be controversially ruled out, the sport completely unraveled. The referee became a symbol of outrage. Global headlines screamed corruption, and fans across Italy destroyed TVs, filled streets, and demanded investigation. To this day, the match sits in football history as one of the most controversial World Cup games ever played. But controversy is one thing, violence is another, and for that, nothing tops Portugal vs. Netherlands in 2006, the brutal collision known as the Battle of Nuremberg. The match didn't break down slowly, it exploded instantly. Hard tackles, retaliation, pushing, shoving, and that was just the opening minutes. The referee tried to calm things down, but the players had declared their own war. 16 yellow cards, 4 red cards. Players refusing to shake hands, kicking the ball at opponents out of frustration, coaches yelling at officials, substitutes screaming from the sidelines. At one point, 2 players tackled each other, rolled on the ground, then got up and started fighting again. Commentators were stunned, fans were confused, and FIFA was embarrassed. The match didn't feel like a World Cup knockout game, It felt like a battlefield with a ball in the middle. And yet some matches aren't remembered for cards or controversy, but for injuries so shocking they changed the entire emotional temperature of a stadium. Brazil vs Colombia in 2014 is remembered for one tragic moment, the knee to Neymar's back that fractured his spine. Up until then, it was already a rough match, but after that challenge, everything spiraled. Colombian players kept launching into reckless tackles. Brazil responded with even harder fouls. The referee looked completely lost. Every whistle was ignored, every decision argued, every player angry. Brazil wasn't just fighting Colombia, they were fighting fear. The fear of losing their star, the fear of losing the World Cup, the fear of letting their country down. By the final whistle, it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like emotional devastation wrapped in yellow jerseys. But nothing, absolutely nothing, compares to the emotional chaos Brazil experienced just days later. Germany vs Brazil, the 7-1. A match so shocking, it transcended football. No red cards, no fights, no controversial calls. The chaos here was emotional. A psychological collapse broadcast live to the world. When Germany scored 3 goals in 6 minutes, fans began crying in the stands. Players dropped their heads. Commentators struggled to speak. Children and adults alike covered their faces, unable to watch. Inside the stadium, the atmosphere felt like a national funeral. Every German pass was met with groans. Every Brazilian mistake drew gasps. When the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th goals went in, the chaos turned surreal, like watching a nightmare unfold in slow motion. It wasn't violence. It wasn't controversy. It was trauma. Sometimes chaos comes not from emotion, but from scandal. And for that, we turn to the 2015 Gold Cup, Mexico vs Panama. The match began as a normal semi-final. It ended as one of CONCACAF's biggest controversies. Panama took the lead, fought fiercely, and then disaster. A wildly questionable handball call gave Mexico a penalty. Panama's players were furious. They surrounded the referee. They threatened to walk off. When Mexico equalized, fans began throwing bottles, cups, and objects onto the field. The chaos got worse when another controversial penalty was given to Mexico. Panama's players nearly refused to continue. Security rushed onto the sidelines. Commentators accused the Federation of favoritism. It was football at its ugliest, but for pure, unfiltered violence, the kind that makes referees fear for their safety. We go back to 1962, Chile vs Italy. The Battle of Santiago, the most violent match in World Cup history. Punches thrown, kicks landed, players dragging each other on the ground. One Italian player broke another's nose. Police ran onto the field multiple times to break up fights, with batons in hand. At one point, the match looked more like a bar brawl than a sport. Commentators around the world called it a disgrace, but in some strange way, it became legendary, a reminder that the World Cup once lived on the edge of absolute chaos. Finally, we end with a match so bizarre, it sounds like a conspiracy theory, except it wasn't. Argentina vs Brazil, 1990, a tense, physical game, overshadowed by claims of dirty tricks. Brazilian star Branco later said Argentina's staff gave him a water bottle laced with a sedative. Whether intentional or accidental, FIFA investigated, and the incident became one of the strangest scandals in football history. Players already furious with each other now accused each other of cheating, time-wasting play acting. The match didn't boil, it simmered with distrust. Every foul felt dirtier, every stoppage filled with tension. By the end, the rivalry felt toxic. These 10 matches remind us of something powerful. Football isn't just a sport, it's emotion, pride, pressure, and sometimes pure chaos. It brings out the best in humanity, and occasionally the worst. But in every chaotic match, and every ugly moment, we see why the world loves this game. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications bell, and I will see you in the next video.